Well, it was a tough American Thanksgiving road trip for the Habs. They lost 7-2 to the Colorado Avalanche on Saturday afternoon. But that wasn't the only reason the game left an impression. There was also a certain level of nostalgia on the ice. And joining us now with more sports analyst Meeker Guerrier. Hi, Meeker.
Hi, Maya.
So the Avalanche players weren't wearing their usual jerseys. Instead, they were wearing Quebec Nordiques jerseys. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I think that hurt a lot of people, but it also made a lot of people smile because the Nordiques have left Quebec 30 years ago to become the Colorado Avalanche. They won 3 Stanley Cups since then, and when they were in Quebec, they had a hard time at some point performing properly in that league. But that win against the Montreal Canadiens 7-2 really hurt the Habs. But to see that Quebec Nordiques jersey was something very nice, even for people who didn't like the Nordiques, like myself, because I'm born and raised in Montreal, but I always had like a little affection for them because they're the second Quebec team. That being said, you talked about a hard road trip, but I want to put things in perspective. Had we told fans that the Habs would win 2 games out of 3 on the road during that trip, a lot of people would have signed at the bottom of that contract. So, yeah, it was a tough loss, but the trip was successful.
Yeah, fair enough. And yeah, I mean, the Nordiques and the Habs, like a classic rivalry. So I'm sure that brings up all kinds of memories for hockey fans. Speaking of what happened over the weekend, the F1. So a crucial victory yesterday for Max Verstappen at the Qatar Grand Prix.
Yeah, and that's going to push the suspense for the last Grand Prix in Abu Dhabi. Max Verstappen, who was 100 points away just a few months back from Piastri at the time, and Lando Norris later on during the season, he now has a chance for probably a historic comeback if he is able to gather enough points during the last Grand Prix. That being said, Lando Norris, all he has to do is finish in front of Max Verstappen, but he still has to fight Oscar Piastri, his teammate, which means that you have 3 drivers at the end of the season who still have a chance of winning that championship. And that's amazing for F1 because in the previous years, we saw the dominance of Max Verstappen. And I think that hurt a little bit the sport, especially in the U.S. market.
Okay, so we're going to turn to basketball now, specifically the WNBA. There have been negotiations underway, so the league and the players' union have reached an agreement now for an extension for the negotiations and their current bargaining agreement. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. They added 30 days to the negotiating period. And that's good news because normally when you're negotiating, if a deadline is closing in, you usually have like more discussions. And if there's no way to reach an agreement, usually, well, we'll get to that deadline and then there'll be a strike or lockout. And it'll be very hard for the two sides to have an agreement. But to see that period extended is a good news. There are a lot of things that are on the table. Players want to have some security and some help for players after their careers. And we know that women's sports is still evolving. There are still a lot of things to negotiate. But just remember how men's sports in general was just a few decades ago and how they had to negotiate and fight for everything they have. So I think it's important to support those athletes and to support their rights to get their fair share of the revenues.
All right, fair enough. Thank you very much, Meeker. Always good to talk to you.
Really good to see you, Maya. Talk to you soon.